like to call the Henry County Council meeting of October 9th, 2024 to order. If you'd please stand for a pledge and a short prayer, please. The only thing we'll add to the itinerary is approval of the minutes from our September 11th meeting. We'll do that after our public hearing on the 2025 budget. Like to call the public hearing to order concerning our county budget, which is ordinance number 24-11, followed by the solid Waste Management District Ordinance 24-12. Council, you should have a copy on the state form that's required for submittal and discussion and approval of the 2025 budget. I would like to read through the actual numbers. We don't have media here, but again, get on Gateway or listen to our recording. General fund budget as proposed for 2025 is $17,686,455. That's an adopted levy of $10,300,000. 2015 reassessment fund, $306,000 with an adopted tax levy of $331,000. We have several bonds. Bond number 3 is still active, and it's for $1,875,313 with an adopted tax levy of $1,778,638. Bond number 4 is still active. It's for $1.3 million, and the adopted tax levy is for $1,300,000. Our local income tax adopted budget is $2,598,020, and the adopted tax levy is 0. Susan, if you would like to continue down the list of proposed budget.
Public safety local income tax with an adopted budget of $1,080,481 and a $0 adopted tax levy. Highway adopted budget $3,032,911 with a $0 adopted tax levy. Local road and street $935,299 adopted budget and a $0 adopted tax levy. Cumulative bridge has an adopted budget of $901,000 and an adopted tax levy of $524,623. And health has an adopted budget of $330,316 and an adopted tax levy of $273,000.
Yeah, the County Emergency Medical Services has an adopted budget of $1,111,972 with a $0 adopted tax levy. The park has a $502,148 adopted budget with a $506,000 adopted tax levy. The Cumulative Capital Development CCD Fund has a $540,000 adopted budget with a adopted tax levy of $760,000. And the redevelopment has a adopted budget of $87,070 with a $0 adopted tax levy. And I guess I would like to mention that those are all property tax levies is what we're discussing on there. The revenue from income taxes is not included on that.
You want to go ahead and read the Grand total amount at the bottom.
Yeah, the grand total adopted budget is $32,286,985 and an adopted tax levy of $15,773,261.
Go ahead and read the adopted tax rate at the.
Yeah, the adopted tax rate yielded out of this comes to 0.8312, so 83.12 cents on the dollar.
Okay. And turning the page, a separate budget on a similar form required by the state is the Special Solid Waste Management Fund 8210. Mike, you're the liaison of the Council on Solid Waste Management. Would you care to read that proposed budget, please?
For the special solid waste management, adopted budget is $377,732, and the adopted tax levy is 0.
Thank you, sirs and madam. Appreciate it. Going to open up to the public for any questions, comments. These are public records that's available through Gateway from the state of Indiana. It'll be posted in the Career Times in an upcoming edition. Going once. Comments from the public. Going twice. Gone. 3. We'll have a recommendation to approve the proposed budgets. These are resolutions for the upcoming 2025 Henry County budget and tax rates. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. I move to approve County Budget Ordinance 2024-11.
Okay, that's everything
I'll
except solid waste management. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mike. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 4-0. We don't have anyone online. Is that correct, Debbie? Okay, we have 2 that we're hoping to Zoom in. They have not done so. Who is? Okay, Joel, I know is on the road and he said he would try to get in. And he also said he was going through some areas that might not have good reception. So that passes 4-0 since we don't have anyone online. Do I have a proposal, a motion to approve the 2025 Special Waste Management budget?
Make a motion to approve the 2025 Special Solid Waste Management budget.
Second.
Moved by Susan, seconded by Shannon. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 4-0. We have a motion to close or adjourn the public hearing on our proposed 2025 budgets.
I'll move to close the budget hearing.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Passes 4-0. We adjourn the public hearing for the Henry County 2025 proposed budgets.
And Betsy is listening online. She is apparently having a hard time getting the Zoom to connect.
But one is in Florida, and they're having a hard time, period. Added to our itinerary is approval of the minutes, and we last met on September the 11th. Do we have any additions, subtractions? If not, a motion to approve the minutes from September?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
I'll second.
motion made by Mike, seconded by Shannon. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Was somebody online? No, okay, I thought I heard somebody. And it passes 4-0. Okay. Okay. EDC update, anything? Penny's here, from the EDC. Any questions for her? We do not have a meeting tomorrow morning, correct? That's an update for you who attend. I know Shannon often tries to.
I'll sleep in the morning. Thank you.
Save you a trip from Middletown or wherever. Any other questions for EDC, Penny? No? Chamber, you're on. Chamber of Commerce, come on down. I know you have a Christmas walk coming up, but you may have things before then. Go ahead.
I think you're gonna need to make sure that mic's on.
Now it's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Try that
Look at
again.
it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I did look at it. I'm Cindy Brooks with the Newcastle Henry County Chamber of Commerce. One of the updates that I'm bringing you is the Chamber Luncheon that's coming up on Thursday, October 17th. It's Jennifer Fox, President and CEO of the Henry County Community Foundation. So that'll be a great lunch. It is also sponsored by the Henry County Community Foundation, and we will be serving, it's being catered by Top Hat 2 Pizza King, so be worth it to come for that.
It's at the REMC, right?
Huh?
It's at the REMC.
Yes, it is at REMC. Check-in 11:15, networking 11:30, and lunch is served at 11:45 to noon, so, and then speaker. Our next larger event is our designer handbag bingo for the Chamber Scholarship. That's coming up October 24th. We have about 25 tickets out of 320 some tickets. It is at $30. It's at the where's it? Newcastle Armory, and all the funds that are we raised for that goes to the scholarship. We are working on 5 different endowments at the Community Foundation to provide scholarships for each high school, to have one $1,000 scholarship from the chamber each year. So we've done that for the last 3 years. We're hoping to get that endowed and be done with that, so we can support our youth. The Chamber Christmas Walk, yay, is one of the biggest events we have. It's December the 5th, Thursday night, December the 5th, right here in beautiful downtown Newcastle. Lots of great things going on. We are looking for vendors. Last year we had 105 vendors downtown, so we'd like to keep it at 100. I don't think I can do more than that this year. But we are looking to do some additional things downtown with Christmas lights. The mayor has something special he's bringing, different things like that, horse-drawn carriage. So, and also looking for sponsorships for that. Our last thing I'll talk about is our lunch for November. This is very exciting for us as a chamber. Vanessa Green Snyder, the president and CEO of the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, is coming. She's the first woman to hold that position for the Chamber of Commerce. So we're excited about that. Her topics will be Partners in Prosperity, and it's sponsored by the United Way, Heart of Indiana, United Way. So we're really excited about the things that are coming up for the Chamber. We just did a nice networking event with over 40 participants. That we love doing the networking events. It was sponsored by Boar's Head, and so lots of great things going on for the Chamber right now. Well, we did just get 3 new members this week, so this is exciting. Tip Top Car Wash, which is going to be opening soon on State Road 3. There's a new dry cleaner coming to town, Fox Cleaners over on 14th Street, and 922 Decor Incorporated is also a new sponsor for this week. So great, thanks.
Any questions for Cindy? I know some of us tried to attend some of the ribbon cuttings.
Yes, oh yes, we did have ribbon cutting right downtown, TJ's
Yes,
Ribbon. It was very nice. So
I saw that posted. I had another.
I was
obligation.
I was worried because I'm not sure if I would be able to like Cajun
I
food,
didn't-
but
I didn't-
it was amazing. So they have something for everybody. So let's come down and visit with her also. So
Very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Cindy.
having me.
Appreciate the updates. I have a list of transfers. I may go out of order because my printer on this case printed front and back, which may not necessarily be the order of your itinerary, so apologies in advance. I will start off with Debbie. Auditor's Office has a $3,995 request for a transfer from draftsman to printing. You want to handle all these at once, council, or do you want to do one at a time? We've done it both ways. Okay, moving on to the flip side, which is out of order.
I would say, difference in some are from general and then others are for,
So let's do
from
those
different
separate.
fund sources.
Okay. The park is not from general, and it's my backside of the auditors.
Why don't we just do them individually?
Okay, I think Shannon was about to make a recommendation doing them individually. Do I have a motion for the one that I read on the auditor?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the 39.95 from draftsman to printing for the auditors.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Susan. Any questions, comments? If not, I have a motion to approve that transfer. We already did that. Of course we did. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? That passes 4-0. Now, on the flip side, I have one from Memorial Park. It is 5,000 from land improvements to the equipment repaired. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Anybody? Besides the chair, Shannon?
We did. Both of us seconded it.
Oh, I thought I heard an echo. Okay, if there's no questions, I have motion to approve.
You just got your lingo, man.
I'm just not here today. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 4-0. Okay, third time's a charm. Let's see if I can get this right. Public defender, $350 postage to office supplies. Have a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Got it right. Passes 4-0. Emergency services, 911. Please transfer following funds and the lit PSAP. This particular one for us, it looks like is 4,000 from Social Security, Medicare to overtime. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, do we need all three? I have two more, so three total. Okay,
Sorry, one.
before we make a motion, we, for all of them at once, we have 18,000 from dispatcher to overtime, 8,000 from professional pay to overtime, and I'll reread from 4,000 from Social Security, Medicare to overtime. They're all overtime. Now, do we have a motion to approve all three?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We got through that. Resolution, I have a couple here. This is 20-foot, what? Hey, that's because I don't have that sheet. I mean, I don't have the attachment sheet. Somebody who has it, oh, that's it. This is county council, transfer funds, $19,906 from reclassification to community corrections pay. Are there any questions? I know Susan and I spent some time in Debbie's office this past week going through some of these. This is one where we had a discussion on. If there are no discussions, or if there are, speak up. If there's not, take a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
And moved and seconded. I guess there's no questions. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 4-0. Still no one online. Wow, okay. Now let's get back to the resolution. This is from the claims against the opioid manufacturers and distribution or distributor settlement fund. You can read through this. As the only new one, number 9, the $1,350 that Angela spoke of previously to pay for the cost of training for the crisis intervention team coordinators. Yes, number 9, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mike, and then seconded by Shannon. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Still passes 4-0. Knightstown Library Board appointment that we do, and this one comes recommended from Knightstown Library for Mary Jo Purdy. And it's from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2028. So it's a 4-year appointment.
I move to approve.
Moved by Shannon,
Second.
second by Susan. Discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 4-0. Highway Department, Braden. Come on up.
I just have a couple things, like to bring up and discuss. But first I'll start by saying, thanks for the raises. I haven't heard any of my guys, complaining about that, so I think everyone was okay with that. But, first thing I'd like to bring up that I guess is, a little bit disturbing to me is, Kenny, you and I had a conversation last week in the office, about the raises and how those raises were getting covered. You expressed to me that, that money was automatic given to us. We should not have to ask for it. And that's the way it was. Okay. Later that day was a conversation, with Debbie, and you proceeded to tell her that that conversation never happened between you and I, that we were talking about two totally different things. I don't know how much more clear I can be when I specifically ask about the raises that were just given. I don't know how much more clear I can be to the point where we were talking about two different things.
You asked me to come over. I came over. You read a letter from Debbie, which I did not have. You were reading through it and said it covers this, except for salaries. From that point on, I thought we were talking about fringe benefits. I did not know we were talking about salaries. To this day, I don't think I've ever seen that particular letter that went out to department heads. So I misunderstood. I apologize. But we were talking about two different things because I was thinking everything but salaries. Salaries goes with raises.
Don't you think, though, that it would not have hurt anything for you to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I'm completely misunderstood you. I was not talking about the same thing. I'm mistaking.
That's one reason I asked if you needed to talk before this public meeting.
Well, that's the thing of it is, I mean, if I can't trust the people that are running this county, who can I trust?
I misunderstood what you said. I'll admit that publicly now. But that conversation was between Debbie and Maria from that point forward. I wasn't gonna get involved in it because I did misunderstand.
Well, just so it's on record, any conversations that you and I have from now on will either be in a public meeting or on email.
Well, that's fine. That's why I
Okay.
wanted to talk to you prior to this meeting, because I figured this might come up.
I knew that's why you wanted to talk to me.
Then you could have brought that to me and we could have had this conversation outside the public.
No, it needs to be brought to the public.
Well, I made a mistake. I misunderstood you. That's the end of the conversation. We were not talking about the same things, or I did not interpret you.
Debbie,
Sure.
Betsy is waiting to join via Zoom. She says she needs admitted.
So I apologize for the misunderstanding that was on my part.
Okay, I don't see how we could be talking about two different things when I specifically asked
Well-
about the salaries, but, okay. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is, I believe it was back in August, I believe, I came to you guys and asked about doing the, paid vacations, which is in the handbook, and you told me it would have to be looked at. And the comment was made that we can't do that for just you. We have to make sure it's fair for the whole county. Okay, I understand that. Okay. The issue that I have moving forward with that is the fact that you guys have been using that term as far as being fair during the salary raises, during all those meetings that was being talked about. The terms slapped in the face was used a lot. Okay. When you guys turned around and approved for a retention bonus for the sheriff's department, which that's great that they got that. I'm not mad that they got that. Along with the other bonus of, living in the county, okay? How can you tell one department that we can't do something because we need to make sure it's fair for the whole county? But a month later, you turn around and approve the extra money to go to one certain department. If one certain department got it and you're wanting to be fair and you're not wanting to slap people in the face, why didn't that go for all departments across the board?
I believe the conversation that took place when you brought it up, we brought it up here. I think you brought it up here, did you not?
As far as the vacations?
Yes.
Yes, I did. Yes.
And I think our auditor made a comment as to why it was changed and why it's in the handbook. Since then, we've had discussion with Stephanie about the handbook. And there's about, 20 different items that we discussed in a meeting in here. I think it was a work session. If anybody that was in part of that work session want to chime in, that's fine.
Did we talk about this at the work session?
I think it came up.
Did.
Because we went back to on the way, we went back to the handbook, and we did not realize that it said, you go to the department head with the approval of commissioners and council.
Yeah. Correct.
So we said that the way it's written right now, it was up to each department head, as long as it was approved by commissioners and council.
Yes, it's up to 40 hours, not to exceed 40 hours. Yes.
I will say that we're reevaluating the entire handbook,
I understand
So-
that. Yeah,
but that's how it currently reads.
correct.
And if it will stay, or I don't know, I'm just saying as a caveat, we're still working through that and will be for a little, a period of time.
Correct. And I understand that. That's not really my point, whether it's in the handbook or not. My point is, you said it's not fair to do it for one department. We need to do it for all departments and be fair about it. If that's the case, then I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. But where is the retention bonus for all the other departments that the sheriff's department received?
The retention bonus, the
The-
attraction
Sign on.
Yeah,
sign-on bonus. Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Betsy.
Okay, sorry.
The residency bonus.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
the residency bonus was something that I presented on knowledge that I was made aware of based on sheriff's vehicles and them taking those vehicles home and living. Many of the new recruits did not live inside the county. That was in my position was, I felt like that was a problem. We would much prefer to have those sheriff vehicles parked in front of residences in Henry County. The intention for them to be present in communities is what my thoughts were. That was the intention. If, Betsy, go ahead. I'll let you go ahead. I know you're wanting.
Oh,
to say-
I just wanted to back up what you were saying. I don't think it's advantageous for us to have a bonus of folks living in county quite as much as the sheriff's department because of those vehicles parked in driveways. I mean, obviously, I think we do want to employ as many locals as possible, but it's a little bit different with the sheriff's department. Also with the retention bonus, I mean, we're talking about $30,000 to train an officer to be ready to go on the road. There's no other department in our county like that. So, you know, these are apples and oranges. Do we want to get everybody paid really well? Absolutely. And maybe there are other bonuses we could consider in the future. But those two specifically were, you know, pretty intentional for the sheriff's department, and I think for good reason.
It was to address a specific problem, in my opinion, and I guess if you came to us with a specific problem, I would want to try to address that problem as well, so.
I mean, I guess in my opinion, it's no different than me spending 3 or 4 months, 6 months, a whole summer, a whole season of paving. Me taking the time, having multiple guys train someone on a paver, and then they turn around and quit. Then you're right back to square one. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again. It is an absolute vicious cycle.
Can you put a dollar amount on that though? Can you put that into context for us?
She asked if you could put a dollar amount on what it would cost to train an individual like that. Just a rough guess, I think, what she's getting at. And I guess if you're having that problem, Braden, it's not been made aware. I've not been made aware that you're having that problem.
And I understand that because I don't come crying to you guys with every little thing that goes on in our department. Okay? And so I try to work within the means and what we have and try to make do with what we have and try not to come to you guys every little whip stitch, asking for this and asking for that, whining about this and crying about
I'm gonna
that.
interrupt, just,
Okay.
I don't think it's inappropriate for a department head to make their needs known to their liaisons, which is why we're more familiar with the sheriff's needs than yours. And if you have communicated the same hiring retention cost to Kenan, then he could make us aware of that too. But I'm not sure it's fair to say a department head is whining and crying because they've communicated their needs to their liaisons. And then we took it upon ourselves to communicate those needs to the rest of the council. I think that's an appropriate escalation method from department head to liaison to broader council.
Okay.
If you're having those issues, then we need to have more discussion. And hiring, retaining, attracting is something that is always a concern. It just happens to be much more publicized also with law enforcement because of the way the state has done things and all these communities trying to change things to keep their people from jumping from one to the other. If that's happening in the highway area, I'm not aware. And if we need to address something like that, we're definitely willing to consider something.
Well, I will just make it known now, the highway department is going to be in serious trouble within the next 2 to 3 years. The amount of guys that we have retiring versus the amount of people, that we're able to draw in. It's very tough to get people to come to work and stay to work when it's below average pay, mediocre benefits. It's very hard to draw people in. And once you get them, it's very hard to keep them there. And I can tell you that within the next 2 to 3 years, we're gonna have a minimum of 6 guys retiring. How we replace that? That remains to be seen, but I don't see it being done very easily.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that we've got a little time to work on it, and I look forward to working with you on whatever we can do to help attract and retain and keep folks working to take care of the highway department.
I'll say the same. We value your department. All of our constituents very much value what the highway department does, and we understand it's something that our constituents care about more than many other things that come up. So we appreciate you and certainly happy to continue, that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, just without the highway, your police officers don't move if we get a big snow. And without the highway, you're not getting potholes fixed. You're not getting roads repaved. You're not getting, roads chip sealed, improved, whatever the case might be. I think that sometimes the highway department is kind of forgotten about how important they are to this county. And, because I don't come to you guys, with a lot of issues, asking for a lot of stuff. I was hired to do a job and I do it to my best ability, but at the same time, I expect things to be fair. And I absolutely, in no way, shape, or form, expect to be lied to.
And if that's towards me, I already apologized
I know.
and I
I'm just-
misunderstood.
I'm just reiterating that I in no way, shape, or form is that right. So that's all I have to say.
Well, I'm sorry I misunderstood the conversation, but I did.
Okay, thank you.
And hopefully the 19% raise you got 3 years ago and the 10% this year will make up for some of the ability to keep your employees.
And
hear
I
that
just,
Department, every
Sorry.
department is having a hard time keeping their employees. And I think we tried to address that this year, which also the taxpayers are paying for. Betsy?
yeah, sorry, just listening and with concerns about the last few minutes, it is the job of the department head to come to council if there are issues. It's not considered whining, it's the job. So I would invite any department head who thinks you're having issues with retaining employees. That's a conversation we need to be having and not being accused of not doing our jobs. So I look forward to that future dialogue.
I know one of the things I brought up consistently the last 4 years is the inefficient or the cumulative bridge fund. And I brought that up the last 4 years, I think. And it's been increased significantly this year. If you look at last year's. So I was glad that we were able to do that.
I would just add one last thing, and that was the consistent word that I heard from nearly every department was, and Braden just said it, we're not paying that great, and the benefits aren't what they used to be. That's why the wage change that we addressed put everybody much, much closer to where they should be. That was our attempt to try to fix the same common problem that every department was having. So completely understand that, and we appreciate that and hope that helped.
Yeah, and it's not that the raise wasn't appreciated, and it's not that it's not going to help. But when you talk to the younger generation, they don't care about benefits. They care about how much money is going to their pocket at the end of the pay period. And that is something that's going to be very hard to overcome. And, when you're, we're by the study that was done, we're still less than than 50% compared to, you know, the surrounding areas and that kind of thing. So, when they see that, you know, the last guy that just quit, he said, you know, we spent 90 days training him on a paver, got just through his probationary period and then quits. Okay? So now we're back to square one. His comment to me was, I can go somewhere else and make $10 more an hour doing the same thing. And I said, I understand that, you know, there's no argument that I can give him to try to make him stay, other than the fact that we have a lot of days off. We have a lot of holidays, you know, a lot of paid holidays. Who cares? Because I'm still making $10 more an hour when I leave this place to go somewhere else. Because he was a younger gentleman. And at the end of the day, all he cares about is the money that's going into his pocket.
I agree with that. I know the school system for years had a fantastic insurance policy. And when we interviewed new teachers, we'd say we've got the best insurance policy, one of the best in Henry County. These people coming out of college could care less. We were paying less starting salary than even the county schools. At one time, Newcastle paid 10 to 15% higher than any of the county schools. So they finally altered the insurance policy and raised the starting salary for teachers considerably to be competitive. When we did 97% of what Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy told us was the market value for, 15 different entities plus 5. Addie told me, she said, if you do that, I can't see anybody complaining because you really don't have the tax base to do 97% because we're compared with like Hancock County and others. She was saying that would be wonderful if you could do that. You're making up for the losses of the last 10 years where we fell further and further behind. So what you just expressed, Braden, is probably, we've heard it from at least 5 or 6 different department heads over the last couple of years. We're still not competitive, but we've gone a long way getting closer this year. And hopefully we can continue that. But there's always going to be places, especially maybe in the private sector, that pays more than the public sector because we're relying on taxes. And there's only so much we can raise as far as taxes, or we're close enough to the donut counties. We're never going to be able to compete with them. And people are willing to drive 40 miles to get paid $10 more an hour because that more than makes up for the gas and the wear and tear on their vehicles. So we're behind the 8 ball when it comes to being competitive. If we were 100 miles away from Indianapolis or Fort Wayne, we'd have a better chance, but we're not.
We'll also be able to, with the way the study was done and how everything was broken out into more categories, we will be able to track how quickly different wage groups are growing. And we know law enforcement was growing faster than we could keep up with. This will give us an opportunity to look at the highways wages, the LTC categories, and see how quickly those wages are growing year over year. It might be that they're growing faster than other departments, in which case we will need to keep up with it. And we're aware of that. The days I think of everybody gets 2% may not work anymore. We're going to have to keep up with how wages are growing from every category. So we're aware of that. We look forward to working with you in the future to make sure we can keep up with things.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything before? Oh, go ahead.
So, just a clarification, so currently in the policy, it states that he can pay a week out with the commissioners and the council approval, is that correct? Just because we're looking at the policy doesn't mean that that doesn't stay in effect.
No,
So you can come to the commissioners and request, and then come to the council to request for that to take place. So I would suggest to Braden to come to the next commissioners meeting if he wants to make that request, since it's already in the personnel manual.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Are we ready for Jason? I know you're here, you and I had a discussion at AIC, and then a lot of AIC sessions dealt with impending questions and maybe not doom and gloom, but a lot of uncertainty at the state level coming up, especially with the upcoming election. And what might be feasible and what might not be feasible in these uncertain times.
Jason Similar, Baker Tilly. In front of you, I put together some information that we were asked to prepare. As you know, as you're going through the budget the last couple of months and working with the auditor's office, you know the county's assessed value has increased pretty significantly again this year. And as you're going through your budget, if holding everything else constant, even with the increase in your budget that you're proposing, we could see a potential decrease in the tax rate for the county unit. So we were asked to put together some information on if we wanted to keep the tax rate level, or if we wanted to see just a slight reduction in the tax rate, how much could the county bond? Or we actually looked at, we did that, but then we also looked at a $5 million project, what that would look like just to the tax rate for the county. So that's what I have in front of you this evening. I thought I'd go through the schedules and we can kind of talk about this. And then if you remember, we did the same thing a couple years ago in 2022, I believe. Same thing happened. You saw a significant increase in your assessed value. The county had some needs that it needed to address and took that opportunity to do a small bond issue, a short-term bond issue at that time to help fulfill some of those needs without seeing a rate increase to its taxpayers. So on page 2, if you turn that page, what we did is we looked at your 2024 funds, your levies, and then your tax rates. So for instance, in your general fund, the amount of your budget that's payable from property taxes is that $9,587,000. So to generate that amount of revenue, you had to levy a tax rate of about 48 cents. And then you can see the rest of the funds, we went through those and calculated for 2024. You had a tax rate of 0.6894, so almost 69 cents. So at the bottom of the schedule there, we took your advertised budget and then based upon the 2025 assessed values, calculated what tax rate that you would need to generate to levy your proposed budget. And as you can see, going through all those items there, you would need about a 62.63 cent tax rate. So a 6 cent rate reduction in the county's rate if you just go forward as planned. If you wanted to increase your, and keep in mind, and this is, I know you know this, but for the public, the tax rate's decreasing, but you're not allowed to increase your general fund or any of your funds by more than what you're already approving because of the state maximum levy growth of 4%. But if you did want to keep your tax rate at that 66 cents, you could levy an additional $1.4 million in revenue. Or if you were going to issue a bond, you could fund a bond payment of $1.4 million. Any questions on how I came up with that 6 cents or that 1.4? Okay. So as I mentioned, we were asked to look at funding of a project of about $5 million over 5 years. So looking at a $5 million project with fees, you're looking at about a $5.1 million, $5.2 million total project. Next page, if we fund that over a 5-year period. And I looked at your outstanding bonds too, trying to keep that somewhat level. And this is all for kind of illustration. We have a lot of flexibility here, but I showed that if we were to levy about, have an annual payment about $837,000 to $840,000, you would see an increase, or you need to have a levy of about, or a tax rate of a little over 3 cents to be able to pay for that $800,000. And if you remember from the first page, I'm showing your tax rate's going to drop by about 6 cents. So this would eat into that about half. So even if you were to issue these bonds, have an annual payment about $840,000, you'd still see a 3 cent rate reduction, the county's tax rate. And then I kept that the same for 2026 budget. And then you can see in 2027 and 28, 29, it increases to about 1.3 million, which is about a 5-cent tax rate. And the reason I did that is if you turn the page, that's because you have the 2002 bonds that we issued still outstanding. It has 3 years of payments. And you can see the payments there. So if you look at the second column to the right, this year, your tax rate for your bonds was 8 cents. If you were to go forward with this, bond issue is illustrated, it would go, the amount that you have to levy to pay out both bonds would be a little over 11 cents. So again, a 3-cent rate increase. Again, that would be offset with the 6-cent rate decrease we're anticipating because of the increase in the tax base. Then in 2026, I'm showing the tax rate being the same. And then 2027, I'm showing the tax rate would decrease by almost 6 cents, 5.5 cents, because the 2022 bonds drop off. So that would be another opportunity if you had more projects that you wanted to fund in 2025, 2026. That'd be another good time to issue another bond, is that those bonds drop off like we've done in the past. And then the last schedule just shows the 2022 bonds that you do have outstanding. About $5 million. Well, I guess about 4.3 million now. So again, this was just one illustration on what the county could do if it wanted to, and if it had projects that it needed to fund. One thing I also, I talked to Ice Miller, attorneys that serve as your bond counsel. They'd put together a timetable to show the steps that would be required. And if you remember when we did this in 2022, in order to get the tax rate in place for 2025, we have to close by the end of 2024. So this is a very tight timetable if it's something that you're interested in, but it shows that we could do this if it's something that you're interested in.
Can you talk?
You and Ryan Hoff spoke at one of the sessions on budgeting and kind of unknowns, future forecasts relating to the state. I don't remember all specifics, but it seemed like some scenarios could be pretty bumpy. A lot of unknowns, especially as it relates to property tax. I know that the ICCA, the Indiana County Council Association's looking into the lawsuit in Lake County, that expanding the definition of homestead credit substantially, even more than the Marion County case 2 years ago, which could have a huge effect on revenues coming into counties and municipalities. In light of that, what would be the advantage of us looking into this seriously?
Sure.
Or are there any?
What was the last thing you said?
What would be the advantages of us locking something in now, basically, according to Lisa, by next week, in order to make something happen by December? In the unknown climate that was, shared down at AIC, are there advantages of locking in something with today's certainties to warn off any uncertainties in the future that might curtail our ability to do what is in front of us here that you've given us information on? Are there any advantages?
Well, the only thing I can tell you for certain is that nothing is for certain, especially this session. And as we talked about that conference, I think everything is going to be on the table, this general session related to property taxes and income taxes. And Ryan made the comment that even bonding for projects may even be more difficult in the future. So I guess from your perspective, if you have projects that you need to fund, that you want to do, it's probably not going to get any easier to either borrow the money, either from a tax rate standpoint, because interest rates are still low from a financing standpoint, from a process standpoint. And then also we're showing a decrease in your assessed values, so the increase to your taxpayer. As you mentioned, there's everything on the table that's as far as tax for property taxes. Ryan mentioned that he knows there's going to be a bill that's going to eliminate property taxes. Now, if we have bonds outstanding, we can't eliminate all property taxes because you have an agreement, with the bond purchasers that you're at least gonna levy property taxes to make those bond payments. And at that workshop, it was kind of like, what ifs? What if this happened? What was the impact? And if you remember, most of the what ifs, the end result was not going to be very kind to municipal governments, because it was typically probably going to mean potential reduction in revenue for county government, really all units of government. So from the bonding standpoint, as we talked about before, this is really the only additional revenue that you have to fund projects that you want to do. A lot of those things that we talked about that decreases property taxes, like you mentioned, that's going to decrease your tax base. So just do the opposite of that, what we're talking about, but that's going to increase tax rates and then increase your circuit breaker losses, which I know that's something that we struggle with every year on how to be able to fund not only your projects, but your daily operating costs. So if any of those things happen and they don't put something to replace it, that's going to make it not more difficult just to cover your projects, but your operating costs. So that's a benefit of bonding, because you're going to have that revenue.
So if the state passes something next year, typically would go into effect in July if they pass it in the first session. So could we, I guess we do it now, we're impacting, I'm trying to figure out the timing. So we're talking about 2025 property taxes.
Correct.
And what would the difference be of looking at something and doing it on this tight timetable versus doing something in March?
Then it would not hit the tax rolls until 2026.
So it would essentially show a tax decrease and then an increase.
Correct.
Gotcha.
When we first had this conversation, I don't even remember what instigated the conversation, to be honest with you, but I asked you to do something that would be tax neutral, because I knew we just raised, the lids. And you came back with this. And full disclosure, Susan, Shannon, and I spoke with you by phone last Thursday, asking you some of these questions, and then which precipitated us asking if you could either Zoom in or be here today. But that was one of the criteria, was it either had to be tax neutral or actually be to the benefit of the taxpayer.
Right.
And this does that.
Correct. And 5 years, there's nothing magic about 5 years. We could do something less. We could do something shorter. I think when we talked about trying to get to a $5 million project and within 5 years. So that's what we can do. It's really depending on what your needs are, on how far out we go. And
Well, no, the last time we bonded, we spent a considerable amount of time discussing what we wanted to do with the money. And this is a pretty compressed time frame. So that's just one thought that comes to mind, is we're not giving a lot of time to think through what the needs are.
And that was one thing that we also talked about as a concern on the call last week. And I did confirm with Ice Miller that we can be provide a general description of the projects that you want to do, whether it's, just improvements to public buildings or, infrastructure, water and sewer. You don't have to be specific to the actual, location or building. If that was your, direction, to give you the flexibility if you wanted to go forward, but not have to make a decision on what the specific project is now, you have that flexibility.
I know Corey brought up infrastructure. It costs $10 million to run that line up to Geo and the sheriff's department. We're talking about, what, 5 million here? So it wouldn't take much infrastructure alone, let alone buildings. I think the quote from DLZ was like 11 million for these 3 buildings. 5 million doesn't go very far these days. 5 million used to go really far. You could do a whole lot with 5 million. You can't do very much. Would cost 10 million to run a line from Newcastle up to 200.
You have any thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, my main concern when broaching this at all was tax neutral to the taxpayers. We already kind of did something that they're taking a hit, not a huge hit, but they're taking a hit for these salary increases.
Betsy, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have any thoughts?
Sorry. I like that it would be tax neutral for the taxpayer. Yeah, this is something I'd really want to sit and think about. So I don't have any strong opinions at this point, just looking for more information, and I appreciate Jason looking into this for us.
So we would need to come up with some sort of plan and decision. I mean, we need to have a plan tonight to get parameters to Ice Miller.
So I like that it can be generic. And then I also don't like that it can be generic, because then I'm voting to bond for money and I won't be, none of us may possibly be in these seats when we decide what to do with it. So then there is just a question of, are we being responsible with taxpayer money if we're bonding for something when we won't get any voice into what's done with it. So that's what I'm thinking, more for the rest of the council than for you. I appreciate the numbers you put together.
So the question is to bond or not to bond? If it's now, something has to get to Lisa Lee by 14th, which is what, next Monday? What I'm seeing,
I don't want to speak for Lisa, but I think if I gave it to her a couple days later than that, she'd be okay with that, but
I'm not sure that'll help
yeah, I know
satisfy
that it's
some
still
of
very
the,
quick turnaround for you guys, but yeah.
But
some of the questions I'm hearing, I'm not sure can be answered in that amount of time. And my whole experience is in the school, and I know they had to do this for the middle school, and they had to make some decisions, and they were advised similar that all's going to happen is the interest rates are going to go up, and they made a decision without, I don't think they had all the architectural drawings, and they added an auxiliary gym and did millions of dollars worth of improvements,
what
Not-
kind of?
not having it all pinned down. So I don't know.
If we wait until next year, then we'll have the tax rate dropping down and going back up. And Debbie or anyone else, what kind of visibility do people notice 5 cent? Yeah,
Well, the property taxes are going to go up because of assessed values. It just,
Well,
well, I'm just saying the state currently bases property taxes on
They're
assessed
going,
value.
they're going up even if we do nothing. That was the comment.
Yeah.
Not because of something we're doing. The
That's just
assessed
the-
values went up.
If
for the
assessed
tax-
values go up the way the
The
state has
overall
it set.
tax bill will go up, but the actual tax rate that we're discussing goes down.
your
Yep.
home is worth more, so your taxes will go up regardless of what we're discussing right now.
Yeah, what we're discussing would be tax neutral to the taxpayer, but it's the property taxes that the state sets based on assessed valuations that would cause it to go up, not any decisions we're making.
yeah, I think that's a good way to explain it. The tax rate would be either neutral or see a decrease, but the property tax bill could go up or down depending upon the taxpayer.
And maybe depending on the election. I'm hoping that the one proposal that property taxes would go away entirely. I know that would get the vote from the taxpayers, but it has to be, if you're gonna have fire and roads and EMS and law enforcement, or the list goes on and on, the things that people come to expect, 911, it's got to be paid for by something, and right now it's taxes. But I like the idea of not increasing whatever decisions made, either whether it's now or in the future. My only concern is that something happens at the state level that'll put a crimp on this, and a year from now or 6 months from now, we can't do anything, and we'll look back and wish that we had. But some of that, what do you start off with? The only certain thing is uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it is, yes, it could be more difficult to bond and the impact could be worse, but then they also, with these assumptions right now, we're assuming the assessed values, stay constant. Things that they're proposing could decrease, like I said, the tax base. Instead of seeing this 3-cent rate reduction, the same amount could be a 10-cent rate reduction. We just don't know. And we'll have a better idea, after the legislation.
I hope the worst case scenarios that were articulated at our conference, that few of those more radical ones do not get passed, because it's going to have an unbelievable negative impact on counties and municipalities in particular. So we can hope. But I will say that the things Corey was talking about on infrastructure, whether it's for housing or the development out there from the industrial park, there are a lot of things that are going on, some in the city, some outside the city limits, that the potential costs are going to be more than anything that we have. Last week, we learned about the youth center and those monies being come out of ARP. Well, the ARP monies that we have are not anywhere close to the maximum that GLZ proposed. So there's got to be cuts from some of that. We always have priorities and decisions to make, and a lot of them, the more costly ones, deal with buildings and infrastructure, or upkeep thereof, or improvements thereof.
Do you want to make a point, though? If we bond for this money and use it for infrastructure for housing, that would not be our normal spending, right? We've only ever supported those types of projects through food and beverage. And so that is not necessarily something I'm interested in doing, is bonding for this money with property tax dollars and then using it for economic development projects.
And you have to remember, RDC also does a lot of funding. Sorry.
I almost heard it all. I just didn't want to miss it.
You also have to remember that on a lot of the infrastructure, the RDC does a lot. I'm not saying that they can fund a $10 million infrastructure, but there is RDC monies. RDC is always either the city or the county assist. Correct, Penny? I'm not putting you guys on the spot, but in conjunction with food and beverage and other
They
monies.
have
So,
some abilities.
correct, they do have abilities.
I agree.
And I'm not saying that you guys are going to pay for it all, but they do have abilities to do that. And I'm just going to make one more point. This is a very tight timeline. And a lot of times when you do something in a very short period of time to get it rushed through, things are missed. And I would suggest that you take time to think about it. I know the commissioners haven't even been brought into this conversation yet as to what projects they would want to see done. So to do something by the 14th is going to be very, very difficult to get done.
For sure. And of course, the thing that comes to my mind, Bobby, is, your buildings project, DLZ, there's not enough money to do everything that needs to get done. Could we bond and use dollars to complete some additional things that need to get done? Maybe. Is now the right time? Maybe, maybe not.
It'd be difficult to change the project midstream with the
Oh, I'm
scopes.
talking about additional.
It'd been great if we'd have bonded for $11 million when we bonded for the $5 million
I'm
to do
inclined
everything, but we
to-
didn't. So
I'm inclined to wait until we have a specific purpose.
I'm just concerned. I know when I do things in a rush in a very short period of time, something is typically missed. And like I said, I don't know if you guys have had conversations with Joe or Steve, but To my knowledge, we haven't been brought into this conversation yet either. And the 14th is Monday. Tomorrow, you would, actually, a 48-hour notice would have to take place tomorrow to have a meeting with us to take place by the 14th to make it. I mean, it is such a very short timeframe.
The
So,
only way we would really be able to make it work is if it was just a wide open check, which
And-
is
and
something
then
I'm
that-
not interested in
that's-
doing.
that's kind of, I'm not saying it's not doable, but then
I did.
Yeah.
yeah,
If it's enough to, right?
So if we don't act tonight, essentially, then the next tax bill that goes out will show that additional reduction, which is not a bad thing. It's the following one where it would go back up if we need to bond for something else. And I guess I would hope that the public understands that we're just not gonna bond for something that we don't need to, just because it might be easy. If we need to bond for something in the spring or in the fall next year, let's look at it then. It might be more difficult, might even cost us more, but we can't put a pinpoint on it tonight. I'm not in favor.
and I was just told that Monday's a holiday as well. So,
Perfect.
Columbus Day.
I would think,
I didn't hear that.
Monday is a holiday. I was just
Oh,
told that
well,
Monday is a holiday, Columbus Day, so that puts it even.
We'd have to go with your, maybe you could do 2 extra days, and it sounds like no one is really interested in doing it that tightly or that quickly. So,
if I understand correctly, we could do this at any time. We could do it
Yep.
in January. We just won't get the funds until 2026.
Yep.
So we don't even have to worry about legislative changes. If we wanted to do it January, February, the only risk of not doing it tonight is the lowering of the rate and then the
Right.
rate going back up, which
Yep.
people will always see the negative more than the positive of that, and I understand that.
Other than being more difficult to bond or get the process done, can you see any other financial impact to waiting?
No, not really, no. I mean, yeah, interest
Depending
rates
on who
could
gets
increase.
elected in November, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, not really, no.
Okay. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah, not trying to push this on the council at all, just kind of showing here's the option and, I mean, we don't do, I wouldn't want to do anything that you don't feel comfortable, doing. If you need
Absolutely.
more time,
Well, I appreciate the effort and the documentation and demonstrating to us what we could or could not do. And I appreciate the opportunity, and I understand all the concerns about what the state legislature could do, but I think we're just gonna have to wait. And if they make it more difficult, we're just gonna have to play more difficult, I guess. That's my thought.
my last question is, if the worst-case scenario transpires, and that's kind of known by January, February, that things are progressing, that's on the uncomfortable side of financing local government, chances are no bill would take effect until July 1st. Is it possible to get ahead of that if we see the writing on the wall? If we were to start something in March, having more information, would that get ahead of them? Because very few of those kinds of drastic changes take effect at the signing of the governor. Almost all of them take effect either July or December 31st or January 1. Is that correct?
mhm. There are some that are retroactive. I'm just trying to go through my memory right now, but to answer your question, I mean, there's gonna be bills started being proposed in, November, December, and January. If we start seeing things that, are gonna make it more difficult, or, things that we may not want to have to go through, then we could probably start this process in January, February, be in the position that we could maybe close before July 1. As you can see, we talked about 2-3 month timetable. So I think we could, again, we wouldn't know what the final answer is until the end of the General Assembly, which is March or April, which that would be too late, but we could at least start the process if we start hearing rumblings of things we don't like, and then be in the position to try to close on bonds before something was in effect that we didn't like.
Anything else? We're going to have a lot of transfers and additional appropriations at our November meeting.
Thank you so much for all your
Yep.
information, Jason.
What is the date? 13th. Yes, thank you. Thank you for this. Gives us some reading material. I know Shannon and Susan were talking about this even prior to the meeting. So gives us something to digest. Appreciate the
Yep,
update.
you're welcome.
It's helpful. Mike, anything?
I just have a quick question. Are we still meeting at the end of October?
Don't
Fourth
see any need,
Thursday.
you mean as a work session? There's no need to for budgetary reasons. I don't think there's anything on the agenda. And we canceled September's and got it in the paper, so I think we're good. Yeah, it wasn't for the whole year, Susan.
Thank you.
So interesting meeting. I want to share with you, I won't take any more time to read, but I have a synopsis from our association on key legislation and also highlights from AIC since I did attend it. And I'll share that with you. Anything to sign, Debbie? Anything we need to sign? Okay, anything else from the public?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Adjourned. Thank you, everybody.